Everyone, today we will start with the new chapter, which is also the last chapter of Class 8 NCRT, which is India after Independence. When the clock struck midnight on 15 August 1947, India awoke to freedom after nearly 2 centuries of colonial rule. Yet, this long awaited independence came with immense challenges. The joy of liberation was shadowed by the tragedy of partition, which tore apart communities and displaced millions. The new nation stood at a crossroad, free but fragile, united yet divided, rich in hope but poor in resources. At the time of independence, India was not a single, well knit country, but a vast mosaic of languages, religion, and princely states. The leadership faced the monumental task of integrating more than 500 princely states, resettling millions of refugees, rebuilding an economy devastated by colonial exploitation, illiteracy, poverty, caste divisions, and communal tension added to the complexity of this nation building process. Amid these daunting circumstances, India's leader, guided by figures like Jawaharlal Nehru, Sardar Patel, B.R. Ambedkar, and Mahatma Gandhi's ideal, sought to shape a new vision, a sovereign, socialist, secular, and democratic republic. The adoption of the Constitution in 1950 laid the foundation for a nation that aspired to combine political democracy with social and economic justice. This chapter explores how independent India confronted its early challenges of unity, democracy, and development, and how it reorganized its states, planned its economy, and defined its place in the world through a policy of non alignment. It also examines India's achievement and unfinished task, reflecting on how far the country has come and how far it still has to go in fulfilling the promise of freedom. Before we explore how India tackled these early challenges, let's take a quick snapshot of what the country looked like at the moment of independence. So, when India became free in August 1947, it faced not celebration alone but an enormous test of survival and unity. The new nation was born amidst violence, displacement, and deep uncertainty. Leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, and Mahatma Gandhi had to turn the dream of freedom into the reality of functioning country. The partition of India and Pakistan uprooted between 12 to 20 million people, which was one of the largest and most tragic migration in human history. Hindus and Sikhs fled from Pakistan to India, while Muslims moved in the opposite direction. Around 8 million refugees arrived in India, often with nothing but the clothes they wore. The government faced the huge task of providing shelter, food, and jobs to millions of displaced people. Refugee camps had to be built, new homes provided, and communities resettled, all while maintaining peace and order. At independence, India was not a single political unit. The British Indian provinces were joined by about 565 princely states, each ruled by a local monarch. These states were not directly under British rule, and now each had to decide whether to join India or Pakistan or remain independent. This was a critical moment. Without unity, the idea of India could collapse even before it began. Thanks to the diplomatic skill of Sardar Patel and VP Menon, almost all princely states signed the instrument of accession to join India. However, some like Hyderabad, Junagadh, and Kashmir required firm political or even military action for integration. India's population in 1947 was around 34.5 crore, most of whom lived in villages. The society was divided into caste, religion, and class, and the economy was largely agriculture dependent on the monsoon. There were very few industries, widespread poverty, and poor infrastructure, meaning there were poor roads, hospitals, and schools. Now, the schools were scarce. Leaders realized that political freedom would have little meaning unless it led to social and economic justice for all. India had to quickly set up an entirely new system of government, elections, bureaucracy, judiciary, and army, all under Indian control. The Indian Constitution was the foundation of this new system, ensuring democracy, equality, and representation for all citizens. The new leadership had to ensure that India remained united while also developing economically. Regional, linguistic, and caste differences could threaten unity, and poverty could deepen divisions. Regional, linguistic, and caste differences could threaten unity, and poverty could deepen divisions. Thus, nation building and economic planning became twin pillars of independent India's early years. Once these immediate challenges of unity and stability were tackled, India turned to a more permanent task, building the framework of a democratic republic through its constitution. Let's see how that historic document was written. So, after independence, India needed a framework to govern such a vast and diverse population. About 300 representatives from across the country met as the Constituent Assembly in December 1946. They came from different religion, and political background, but shared one dream to build a free, democratic, and equal India. For nearly 3 years, these members debated every clause, discussed the rights of citizens, and defined the power of government. The result was one of the most forward looking constitutions in the world, which came into effect on January 26, 1950, the day India became a republic. The Constitution gave every adult Indian, man or woman, rich or poor, educated or illiterate, the right to vote. At that time, this was revolutionary. Even advanced democracies like the UK and the USA had extended voting rights gradually over many decades. In contrast, India granted universal adult suffrage from day one, trusting its citizens to participate equally in the democratic process. Now, the Constitution guarantees all citizens equal protection under the law, regardless of their caste, religion, or social status. Unlike some neighboring countries that chose religion based state, India adopted secularism, ensuring equal respect for all religions. Now, untouchability was abolished legally. Reservations were introduced in education, employment, and legislature for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe to help overcome centuries of discrimination and exclusion. Balancing power between a strong central government and states was key to maintaining unity. The Constitution also recognized linguistic and cultural diversity while ensuring that the national interest came first. So, what was the role of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar? Dr. Ambedkar was the chairman of the drafting committee and played a pivotal role in shaping the constitution. In his final speech in the assembly, he gave a sober warning about the future. He said, in politics we will have equality, but in society and economy, inequality will remain. This means that while the constitution guarantees political democracy and equal rights, Indian society still faces deep rooted inequalities in wealth, caste, and social status that needed to be addressed over time. With the constitution adopted and democracy established, India next faced another vital question: how to organize its vast territory so that every cultural and linguistic community found its place within the Union. When India became independent in 1947, its leader faced a difficult choice. During the freedom struggle, the Indian National Congress had promised that after independence, states would be recognized on linguistic lines so that people speaking the same language could live within one administrative unit. But the tragedy of partition had just divided the country on the basis of religion, causing massive violence and dislocation. Leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru and Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel feared that reorganizing states by language too soon might weaken national unity. So they postponed the idea, but the demand did not die down. People across India felt that their language was central to their identity. They wanted administration, education, and public life conducted in their mother tongue. The strongest demand came from the Telugu speaker in the Madras presidency, who wanted a separate state for themselves. A veteran Gandhi, Potti Sri Ramalu, went on a hunger strike in 1952, demanding the creation of Andhra state. After fasting for 58 days, he died triggering massive protest and emotional outpouring from Andhra. Faced with widespread unrest, the government finally agreed to divide the Madras presidency and create a new Andhra state on 1st October 1953. The creation of Andhra encouraged other linguistic groups, Kannada, Malayalam, Marathi, and others, to demand their own states. To manage these movements peacefully, the government set up the State Reorganization Commission in 1953, chaired by Justice Fazal Ali. The commission studied India's linguistic, cultural, and administrative diversity and recommended the reorganization of boundaries largely on linguistic lines. Its report led to the passing of the State Reorganization Act of 1956, which redrew India's internal map. Now, following the Commission's recommendation, Andhra Pradesh, Kerala, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Assam, Odisha, West Bengal emerged as major linguistic states. The large Hindi speaking area was divided into smaller states for easier administration. Later reorganization continued the process. In 1960, Bombay divided into Maharashtra and Gujarat. 1966, Punjab divided into Punjab, which was a Punjabi speaking part, and Haryana, mostly Hindi speaking part. Once India had settled its internal boundaries, the next great challenge was to rebuild its economy and improve living standards through planned development. Now, when India became independent, it was among the poorest countries in the world. Nearly 80% of the population lived in villages dependent on agriculture and monsoon rains. There were very few industries, limited transport network, and widespread unemployment. India's leader understood that political freedom had to be matched by economic progress. Without raising living standards, independence would remain incomplete. To rebuild the economy, they adopted a new and ambitious path, economic planning. India chose a mixed economy, meaning both the government and private sector would play a key role. The states would control key industries such as steel, power, transport, mining, and defense, which was considered essential for national progress. The private sector would operate in consumer goods and smaller businesses. This model aimed to ensure rapid industrial growth while avoiding extremes of capitalism or socialism. The second plan, designed by the second five-year plan designed by economist P.C. Mahalanobis, focused on developing heavy industries, steel, machinery, power plants, and engineering. The belief was that a strong industrial base would help India become self-reliant and create the infrastructure needed for future growth. Large public sector projects like Bhilai and Bokaro steel plants, Chitranjan locomotive works, and dams such as Bakra Nangal became symbol of a modern, forward-looking India. Nehru famously called the dams the temple of modern India. While India invested heavily in large projects, primary education did not receive enough attention or funding. Schools in villages lacked teachers, building, and basic materials. Low literacy slowed modernization and limited people's ability to benefit from new technologies. Even though leaders like Mahatma Gandhi and Mirabai warned about excessive industrial focus, education and rural development were often sidelined. The goal of planning was not just economic growth but also social justice to reduce poverty, close the gap between rich and poor, and ensure every region developed fairly. While progress was slower than expected, the planning system gave India a foundation for self reliance and modern infrastructure. As India worked to build its economy at home, it also had to find its place in a divided world, the era of the Cold War. Let's see how India shaped its foreign policy and non alignment movement. When India gained independence in 1947, the world was sharply divided. Two superpowers, that is, United States and Soviet Union (USSR), were competing for global influence in what became known as the Cold War. Countries were expected to choose sides, joining either the American bloc, which was capitalist, or the Soviet bloc, which was communist. But newly independent India chose a different path, one guided by peace, independence, and moral leadership. India's first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, also served as the country's first foreign minister. He believed that India's freedom would be meaningless if it is simply followed the followed the lead of powerful nation. India needed to make its own decisions based on national interest and moral principles, not external pressure. India's foreign policy rested on five guiding ideas, which was known as the Panchsheel Principle, signed between India and China in 1954. Now, first is mutual respect for each other's sovereignty, non aggression, non interference in internal affairs, equality and mutual benefit, peaceful coexistence. These became the foundation for India's approach to world affairs, emphasizing dialogue over conflict. In the 1950s, many newly independent nations from Asia and Africa wanted to stay free from Cold War politics. Together with leaders like Joseph Broz Tito, Yugoslavia, Gamal Abdel Nasser, Egypt, Sukarno, Indonesia, Kwame Nkrumah, Ghana, Nehru have formed the Non-Aligned Movement. The first official NAM conference took place at Belgrade in 1961. India became one of the founding members and influential voice for the developing world. Now, despite its ideals, India's non-aligned policy faced several tests. The Indochina War, 1962, strained relations with China. Conflicts with Pakistan, 1965 and 71, showed the limits of pure neutrality. Some NAM members disagreed on global issue, weakening the movement's unity. Yet India continued to uphold non-alignment as a guiding philosophy, balancing friendship with both superpower while maintaining independence. Now, non-alignment gave India an independent voice in world affairs and earned respect as a leader among developing countries. It allowed India to speak for peace, anti-colonialism, and global cooperation, reflecting the moral legacy of the freedom struggle. Even today, India's foreign policy of strategic autonomy continues its tradition, choosing partnership based on national interest, not allegiance. While India gained global respect for its diplomacy, it also continued to struggle at home, balancing its democratic ideals with social and economic realities. Let's look at India's achievement and ongoing challenges after independence. So, by the time India celebrated 60 years of independence in 2007, it had traveled a remarkable journey, one filled with both grave achievement. By the time India celebrated 60 years of independence in 2007, it had traveled a remarkable journey, one filled with both great achievement and persistent challenges. When the country began in 1947, many doubted whether such a diverse and poor nation could survive as a democracy. Yet, India not only endured, it evolved into one of the world's most vibrant democracy. Now, despite linguistic, regional, and religious diversity, India has remained united. The Constitution promise of freedom, equality, and justice has guided the nation through wars, political changes, and social movement. India has held regular free and fair elections since 1952. Unlike many post-colonial countries that fell into dictatorship or military rule, India preserved its democratic character. India made progress in uplifting disadvantaged groups. Untouchability was abolished. Reservation for SC, ST, and OBC opened opportunities in education and employment. Women gained voting rights and increasing representation in politics, bureaucracy, and education. Now, social movement from the Green Revolution to the RTI Act showed that citizens could drive changes within a democratic framework. Over the decades, India has transformed from an underdeveloped colony into a fast growing economy. From the early days of state led planning to the liberalization reform of the 1990s, the country built a diversified industrial base, expanded infrastructure, and became a major player in IT, space, and services. Millions were lifted out of poverty, though progress remained uneven across region. Yet not all the promises of independence have been fulfilled. Despite constitutional safeguard, social inequality and discrimination persist. In many rural areas, Dalits still face exclusion from temples, wells, and public spaces. Communal tension occasionally disrupt social harmony, and the gap between the rich and poor has grown wider, with stark differences in access to education, healthcare, and opportunity. India's story since independence is neither one of the perfect success nor of failure. It is a story of resilience, experimentation, and renewal. Democracy has survived, but justice, equality, and dignity for all remain unfinished goals. As B.R. Ambedkar warned, political equality must be matched by social and economic equality. The task of nation building therefore continues, carried forward by each new generation. Let's start with the exercise. First is name three problems that the newly independent nation of India faced. Now, one problem could be partition triggered a massive refugee crisis. Millions of people who needed immediate support in terms of shelter, food, and employment. Second can be India. India also had to unite 500 princely states, which involved careful diplomacy and, in some cases, use of force to bring them into the Indian Union. Third can be the country struggled with deep social and economic inequalities, differences of caste, religion, language, and region, along with widespread poverty and underdevelopment, made nation building extremely challenging. Next is what was the role of the Planning Commission? So, the Planning Commission, established in 1950, was responsible for directing India's economic progress. Its primary function included formulating 5 year plans that outlined the country's development objective, such as boosting food production, expanding industries, enhancing transportation, and alleviating poverty, allocating government funds, natural resources, and labor to achieve the greatest overall benefit, collaborating with various ministries and state governments to ensure effective planning and implementation of development projects, striving to achieve balanced growth by addressing disparities across different regions and sectors, ensuring equitable development throughout the country. Now, the next is fill in the blanks. Subjects that were placed on the union list were, now there were many subjects, but you can write defense, foreign affairs, and banking. Now, the subjects on the concurrent list were, it has trade union, forest right, education, marriage, divorce. Now, the next is economic planning, by which both the state and the private sector played a role in development, was called a mixed economy model. Now, the death of Potti Siruramalu sparked off such wild protests that the government was forced to give in to the demand for the linguistic state of Andhra. Now, the next is state whether true or false. At independence, the majority of Indians lived in villages, which is true. The Constituent Assembly was made up of members of the Congress party, which is false. It had members from many groups, though Congress had a majority. Next is in the first national election, only men were allowed to vote, which is false. Both men and women above 21 could vote. Next is the second 5 year plan focused on the development of heavy industries, which is true. Next is what did Dr. Ambedkar mean when he said that in politics we will have equality and in social and economic life we will have inequality? Now, he meant that although the constitution granted every citizen equal political right, such as the right to vote, contest elections, and participate in government, India's society would still remain deeply unequal. Issues like caste discrimination, poverty, illiteracy, and unequal access to land, jobs, and education would not disappear overnight, simply because political equality has been established. He cautioned that true democracy requires more than just equal political rights. It demands continuous effort to reduce social and economic inequalities so that all citizens can enjoy dignity and real freedom in everyday life. Next is after independence, why was there a reluctance to divide the country on linguistic lines? After independence, many national leaders were hesitant to reorganize states on the basis of language. Leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru and Vallabhbhai Patel feared that dividing India linguistically might weaken the unity of a country already shaken by partition, violence, and mass migration. They worried that linguistic states could encourage regional identities over a national identity, leading to demands for more divisions and possible conflict. At a time when India was trying to build stability, integration, and a sense of oneness, they felt that linguistic reorganization might threaten the strength of the newly formed nation. Next is give one reason why English continued to be used in India after independence. Now, one reason English continued to be used in India after independence was that it functioned like a link language, helping people from different linguistic regions communicate with one another. This was important for maintaining national unity in a country with so many languages. In addition, English was already well established in the administration, judiciary, higher education, and interstate communication, making it a practical to continue its use. Keeping English alongside Indian language ensured smooth governance and avoided confusion or conflict during the transition period. Now the next is how was economic development of India visualized in the early decades after the independence. Now in early decades after independence, India's economic development was shaped through planned growth under Planning Commission, mainly through a series of 5-year plan. The vision was to build a mixed economy where both the government and private sector contributed to national progress. A major emphasis was placed on developing heavy industry, infrastructure, and agriculture to achieve long term self reliance and reduce dependence on foreign goods. Industries such as steel, machinery, and engineering were seen as the backbone of future industrial expansion. At the same time, large projects like dam, irrigation networks, and power plants were taken up to boost agriculture and improve energy supply. These efforts aim to reduce poverty, create jobs, and ensure balanced development across different regions of the country. Now, in the next video, we will start with the class 9th NCRT. Thank you.